Southern Urals, Russia. A winter morning, present day.
We have terrible cases when the kids of second, third, and now even fourth generation suffer with different defects of.
The road is empty, snow crunching under the tires. Out the window, strange signs appear, one every few kilometers. Maximum speed, do not stop. The letters are faded, but the message is clear. Don't slow down. Don't breathe too deeply. And whatever you do, don't get out of the car. The driver keeps his eyes forward, hands tight on the wheel. The Geiger counter on the passenger seat ticks steadily, like a mechanical heartbeat. Every so often, it chirps sharply, a reminder that the land beyond the window is poisoned. On either side of the highway lie the bones of villages, collapsed wooden houses, rusted farm tools frozen in place, playground swings swaying in the wind. Nothing moves. No animals, no people, just snow, silence, and radiation. Most travelers pass through without knowing why. The locals know better. They know what happened here in the autumn of 1957. The Kyshtym disaster was the third worst nuclear accident in history, after Chernobyl and Fukushima, and it stayed hidden from the world for nearly 40 years.
Been a nuclear accident in the Soviet Union at the Chernobyl reactor 4, the scene of the total meltdown.
That explosion at a nuclear plant in the Soviet Union.
Nuclear reactor is Ukraine's Chernobyl power plant.
Of explosions powerful enough to blow up the steel and concrete lid.
The Soviet Union was built on secrecy, but what happened near the closed city of Chelyabinsk 40 pushed that secrecy to the extreme. It wasn't just an industrial accident. It was an environmental catastrophe that poisoned rivers, fields, and generations of families. And it happened not in the heat of war, but during peacetime, under the watch of a government obsessed with hiding weakness. After World War II, the Soviet Union raced to catch up with the United States in nuclear weapons. In 1948, deep in the southern Urals, the Kremlin built a massive plutonium plant, codenamed Mayak. The nearby closed city didn't appear on maps. Outsiders weren't allowed in. Workers weren't allowed out without permission. Mayak's job was simple: produce plutonium for the Soviet arsenal, no matter the cost. Waste management was an afterthought. In the early years, liquid radioactive waste was dumped straight into the Techa River, the same river where nearby villages drew drinking water, bathed, and fished. When sickness spread along the riverbanks, skin burns, hair loss, strange fevers, officials quietly changed tactics. Waste would no longer be dumped openly. It would be stored in massive underground steel tanks, cooled constantly to prevent dangerous reactions. 20 tanks sat in a deep concrete trench, what workers called the canyon. Each was loaded with tons of radioactive slurry. They were supposed to be watched, maintained, and cooled forever. But in the Soviet system, forever was fragile. By the mid-1950s, Mayak was running at full speed. Tanks were filling with highly radioactive chemicals. The cooling systems, crucial to preventing disaster, were often poorly maintained. Tank number 14 had problems. Its cooling system had failed. Engineers knew about it for nearly a year. But in the rush to keep production going, repairs were delayed again and again. Inside the sealed tank, chemical reactions were heating the waste higher and higher. Without cooling water, the temperature crept toward the point where it could explode. No one stopped it. Sunday, September 29, 1957, 4:20 p.m. Tank 14 exploded. The blast ripped through the concrete trench, shattering neighboring tanks and hurling a 1-meter-thick concrete lid dozens of meters into the air. 70 tons of radioactive waste were blasted into the open air. Within hours, winds carried a plume of deadly particles across 300 square miles of farmland, forests, and villages. The fallout was massive, comparable in area to the Hiroshima bomb, but no sirens sounded. No public warnings went out. The people living under the plume weren't told they were being bathed in radiation. Instead, the cover-up began. Local newspapers published absurd stories about the aurora borealis being visible in the Urals, explaining away the strange orange glow in the sky. Food from farms was seized and destroyed without explanation. Soldiers quietly posted guards along roads, turning people back. Evacuations started a week later, but only in select villages. Residents were told they'd be gone temporarily. Many never returned. Others were moved only a few kilometers away, still well within contaminated zones. Some families were evacuated decades later, in the 1970s, 80s, and even after the Soviet Union fell. In 1968, the government took a new approach. The poison zone was declared a nature reserve, officially closed to protect the environment. Unofficially, it allowed scientists to study long-term radiation effects on plants and animals, and kept the public out.
Gazman Khabarov was born 6 months after the explosion, in a small riverside village about 40 miles downstream from Mayak. He remembers asking his mother why so many funerals were held in their town, why children got sick so often. Her answer was always the same: we don't ask questions. By the time he was a teenager, Gazman had lost neighbors to strange cancers. Friends had heart problems. Babies were born frail or with deformities. But the word radiation was never spoken aloud. In 1991, after the collapse of the USSR, officials finally came to his village and admitted, in cautious language, that something had happened decades before. For Gazman, it wasn't enough. Armed with a Geiger counter, he began walking the riverbanks, measuring radiation levels, documenting illnesses, and collecting stories. He found high contamination everywhere, even in places where families still lived, farmed, and fished. Gazman became a relentless activist, forming a watchdog group with his wife to demand compensation for victims. The government stalled. When compensation was finally offered in the mid-2000s, residents had two choices: take 1 million rubles, about $30,000, and leave. Accept a new house, often just 2 kilometers from their old one, still inside the contamination zone. Many stayed, trapped by poverty and by the cruel logic of the system. Leave and you lose the small monthly stipend paid to those living in irradiated areas. Even today, the zone still holds life. People who farm, raise children, and breathe air heavy with an invisible enemy. Officially, the Kyshtym disaster was rated level 6 on the International Nuclear Event Scale, just one step below Chernobyl. The Soviet Union admitted that 450,000 people were exposed. Unofficially, the real number may never be known. In the southern Urals, there is a road you do not stop on, a river you do not drink from, fields where the wind carries whispers of the past. The disaster happened in 1957. The cover-up lasted decades. The radiation will last for centuries.
Subscribe to our channel if you want to hear more interesting stories.